last minute was denied a visa. So to assuage his emotions, he's so much very pained. He's not physically able to come himself because he's been part of the project since we started. We decided to retain his authorship of his presentation. So I'm speaking for him. Now, we have been taking measurements of surface energy balance fluxes for a period of 10 years or longer, but we decided that during the DACCIWA study, we will look at how the influences of clouds, especially these low-level clouds, will modulate the balance of the surface energy terms. Apart from looking at the surface energy fluxes, we are also engaged in other projects. One of our students who was at the meeting last year in Toulouse was talking about his investigation of low-level jets, and we are grateful that his participation in the DACCIWA project could fund his activities. And other topics of our interest were basically a group that had concentrations in micrometeorology, but because of expanding our, I would say, opportunities to get more instrumentation and actually seeing how the project objectives of DACCIWA could be of benefit, we have moved more along the line of the DACCIWA project objectives. So the surface energy balance, simply put, is given by this expression. We have the net radiation partitioned as sensible, heat flux, latent, and ground, as well as storage terms. Now, the issues that actually make this statement a tenuous condition borders on these following topics. That is, trying to ensure that the representation of the surface is the homogeneity and non-stationary conditions in the boundary layer will force this balance to conditions whereby this equation cannot really strictly be assumed to be equal. Now, one of the terms here, which is the ground heat flux, assumes that since we take measurements soil heat flux buried under the top skin, then we have to contend with this additional term, which Mr. Foken from University of Bayreuth and his co-workers have tried to document how much we lose if we take soil measurement without adding these terms. And we will see that later when we look at our energy flux, that this, not with accurate determination of this topsoil added to the soil heat flux, could make the balance also a challenge. The storage term usually is also of consideration, but for some surfaces, we can believe that the contribution could be somehow minimal. So these four considerations are issues that affect the closure of these surface energy flux terms. And when we come to taking measurements, the measurement of the convective heat fluxes, sensible and latent, are some difficulties, depends on the level of instrument. Of course, you can determine indirectly, but with eddy covariance instrumentation, we also believe that if, as much as possible, these conditions are not seriously violated, then measurement of the convective heat fluxes will be as close as possible to the correct values. But one condition in our location, which is the humid tropics, is that if you look at the Bowen ratio, most times, the magnitude is less than 1. And so that means the latent term is, throughout a diurnal cycle, higher than the sensible heat term. Now, coming back to DACCIWA, we are looking at energy balance with the determination of effects of cloudiness as one of the modulating terms that will affect this balance. So we are particularly interested in looking at or quantifying how much of influence cloudiness will bring to ensuring that this balance is as close as possible for us to have a closure or not. Of course, we are also mindful of the fact that naturally occurring aerosols. In our location, we are talking about harmattan dust, which is part of the northeasterly, or bush burning and some other activities could also affect that surface energy balance. So with this in mind, we decided to present some case studies which are actually targeted to be the IOPs for the DACCIWA study that was conducted recently. The picture here shows the person I'm talking about, who is left behind, as well as the instrumentation. We had used a Campbell Scientific CSAT-3 with a LICO, infrared gas analyzer. Earlier, we had a system of USA-1 by METEC. Our intention was to kind of use this as a comparison to make sure that we can double check for that, for purposes of data consistency. So apart from the eddy covariance measurements, we also had the net radiation, among other parameters taken at this height. Then we had our soil heat flux plate buried at about 5 cm. Then we had soil moisture measurements, soil temperature, as well as some other parameters. With this, we made use of the software provided by Campbell to process the determination of the sensible and latent heat fluxes. We also have the turbulent Next, which is the product from University of Bayreuth that we have made use of. So our intention is at this meeting is just to have a first look. So we are still going back because the data quality control is still very much being engaged. So eventually, we're believing by end of this year, we have a thoroughly screened data so that we go and revalidate some of these observations. So the cases I talked about, we picked all the 15 IOPs, and we took a time starting from the beginning of IOP to the end of the IOPs. The first one taken here is June 17, 18. The conditions on that day was partly cloudy, sunny, and one can see that the net radiation was 30 minutes average values. We had values as high as about 600 watts per meter squared for the net radiation, which drives the other energy flux terms. Now, I mentioned earlier that we measured soil heat flux, not ground heat flux. And that makes the blue dotted, this determination of soil heat flux far lower and subsequently it's affected the balance of these terms. But what is very interesting is that a day like this, IOP1 at Ile-Ife, we had net radiation considerably reaching about 600 watts per meter squared. And if I jump to IOP3, which is on this same panel, we can see that contrastingly, these two are different days. And this just because of the cloudiness that's really damped the level of net radiation for that day. So we have been able to take cursorily looking at the energy balances for the different IOPs that were taken during the study, and this is a continuation. This is IOP 5, 6, 7, and 8, and up to the last one here. Now, the summary from all this is that if you look at this particular column, which shows the degree of imbalance, that is the surface energy balance equation, we had quite a large amount of, as recorded as imbalance. I mean, we had values even on a particular day, which was the IOP2, the imbalance was as high as about 450 watts per meter squared. And that's shocking, because some literature will quote imbalances about 10 to 50%. And if for a particular day we had imbalance as huge as this number, that makes us to realize that, one, if we are not including the topsoil, that is from the top of the soil to where the solid flux plate is, it drops considerably the soil, the ground flux, which is one of the terms that is there. So all these values quoted are indicating that imbalances are so raised in value because one of the terms is seriously underestimated. And since this is just a first look at the data, we posted some of the plots on the CEDU server, which is just as a first guess. So everything we believe post this meeting, we have the capacity and the tools to ensure that all these are adequately recalculated and that we can put our finger on it before one talks of publications. I think that's essentially what Ajao would like to convey here, that we have the data, but not well corrected for issues that will force the balance to be as close as possible. And of course, even apart from the determination of the additional topsoil heat flux, we also have issues about advection and some other synoptic occurrences. So I would just say this is work in progress. Thank you very much.
Okay, questions for this?
Yeah.
Okay, start with
One quick question, because
Yes.
it's not possible in Sangre or Kumasi. Do you have more years than just this year of energy flux measurements, such that you can determine how anomalous perhaps these 2 months were?
For 12 years now, we have taken measurements. Unfortunately, not continuous, they are broken, but we have back data that we can use to to check that what we have. For instance, in 2004, with the University of Bayreuth thing, we did measurements.
Yeah.
So that's...
I
so
just want to say I encourage you to look into this because you have the potential to check how anomalous the energy flux measurements were during the IOP compared to other years.
I'll do that.
Okay, Barbara?
I was wondering what the calibration history of your soil influx plates were? Were they the self-calibrating type or not?
We are using the HFP01 solid flux plates, and
I can't remember whether they're the soft ones or not.
I'm just coming that they are used brand new, so they are in calibration,
Yeah, but
but
they,
not the self-calibrating type.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this will not solve the problem of this high imbalance. The problem is here the high
I
imbalance.
admit that the imbalances are high, but we have not, as I mentioned, we have not done a compensation for the soil term.
But
So that will drastically reduce.
Now, it drastically, I doubt, but anyway. So, just one last question. You have two sonic and two hygrometers. Do you calculate the fluxes by both?
No, actually, we had data acquisition. We had. That is, we wanted to run both systems, but at the time we had issue with data acquisition using the USA one, so we didn't run both systems after all.
So
We
the
didn't
measurement was at 2 meters.
yes, approximately. Yes, that's with the
other
CSAR
one
3.
was, the other one was not.
The upper one was not. Not. It was not integrated into the data acquisition system.
So the data are available.
No.
Okay. Okay. So.
But it's working if.
So we have to. Okay. Any urgent question? So then we have to come to the last talk. Geoffrey is from Leeds.